In this video, I'll be talking about my first plot idea for my film trailer. I hope you enjoy. This film will follow two detectives as they search for the head of a crime empire who has not been seen, ever, even by the subalterns. The story starts off as a mass interrogation of two criminals who they find doing the dirty work for the unnamed villain, who they've named X. The two detectives devise a plan to interrogate these two criminals, who are currently on trial for a series of felonies, but the detectives bail them out and use them as bait to track down the one man that is turning the city into an underground network of criminals who are operating in each area of the city. As the storyline unravels, one of the cops is the crime lord, who operates his empire using the dark web and bribes his subalterns with bitcoins and uses his bully boys as a way to keep his empire in line. It's always the ones you don't expect. The anonymous character is something I haven't seen in any of my crime research, and if I was to use it in my trailer, I could use my characters as a way to include him, as I do not want the audience to know who the so-called X is. I could also use a crime pinboard to show who all the subalterns are, but use a blank photo to show that there is only one character who is unknown. The use of a character who is unknown is something that will make my audience want to learn more about, thus them watching the film eventually in the cinema. I can include short takes of the criminals and detectives, and make them polar opposites in terms of personality. The plot idea is perfect for my trailer, as it has the right balance between action, dialogue and also mystery. What has been my inspiration? I've been inspired by the crime films, like Heat, where it's basic cops and robbers. The reason why I chose to research The Godfather, Goodfellas and Pulp Fiction was because they focused on the lives of the criminals, but I also wanted to focus on the criminals but not give away who the main criminal was in my final film. I drew my main inspiration from the dark web. The dark web, also confusingly referred to as the deep web, is the World Wide Web content that exists on darknets, overlay networks, which use the public internet, but which require specific software, configurations or authorization to access. The dark web was a way in which I create a modern day empire, which I wanted to do ever since I watched The Godfather. I want to use the character X as a sort of Godfather figure, but not actually reveal him, as I think mystery in a trailer is a great convention to have. There's also a plot twist in a good crime film, and a way in which I can make it an audience believe that both of the detectives are protagonists and want them to bring criminals to justice, yet one of them is this mysterious figure who no one knows about. I think they're doing this. Obviously they're not going to see it in the actual crime film, but it will be a very large shock if they do eventually go to see it, and if this was to ever be made into an actual film. So making them seem normal and also showing the characters how they are not shown in the actual film in the trailer is something that I can do, because it will obviously draw more people into the film, but also people would expect the two detectives to be protagonists, whereas most people would expect the typical cops versus robbers, but the plot twists make it a very different crime film if it was to ever be made into an actual film. What are the main conventions that I can use? The first convention will be the psychologically different characters, like Lewis Bloom and Travis Bickle. Making one of the detectives a borderline maniac is something that the viewers of my trailer will love, as there is a lot of admiration for Lewis Bloom and Travis Bickle around the crime genre fan base. These characters are hard to relate to, which makes them even better to use as a main character, as this will make my trailer different, as you'll be able to see how two partners do not have to be similar, and including a clash between the two in my trailer would be a perfect way to show the audience what the film is about and also why they should watch it. I think that creating this sort of character will also add mystery around who the actual character and who the crime lord is, because they'll think that it will instantly be the psychologically different character, but in reality it might not be. Who knows? Another convention is the use of props. I plan to use guns, knives, briefcases and also money, as props are hugely important for the storyline. As my film is a technology-inspired crime film, I want to include props like laptops, desktops and also phones to emphasise the way technology has influenced society and also how easy it is to become anonymous and off the radar. Using props as the connotation as well as the denotation is important, and using other props is key for my film, as you can see a lot of emphasis on the camcorder that Lewis Bloom uses, and this was my inspiration. Using the laptop of a masked man is something I can make my crime trailer memorable to the consumers, as them not seeing his face but also seeing the way he connects to his subalterns will be important, because they won't know who this man is, and they'll also know that he is the antagonist for the film. Costumes will be a major convention, as I will use suits and other outfits that you see in crime films, but I will also use modern day casual outfits to make it look ordinary and realistic. This is important as I want my two detectives to be seen as normal people in some shots, who also have to be chasing after notorious criminals and put their lives in danger every day in suits as detectives. I think this will be very important, because having a sort of different perspective of both characters when they're on their everyday lives, and also when they're detectives, can be very good because you will see an insight into the psychologically different character's life and also an insight into the normal character's life. And if it was to show his life as normal, it would make the plot twist even better because they will see his ordinary life and also they won't expect him to be the crime villain. The use of sound will be a main component for my trailer. I will include some dialogue, but using silence on a long take between the two detectives can create a very mysterious plot, as the viewers will be asking why they do not get along well and why they prefer to ignore each other. This is a great way to connect the characters for my film, as even though they aren't talking to each other, you can still see that they're important to each other and also how they act around each other. The use of this convention can set the tone for the film and what the viewers should expect, as usually when you see two detectives you expect them to get along, and you can see this in films like End of Watch and also True Detective, the series. But having something different and non-conventional will make the trailer that little bit different to other crime films, because having characters that don't actually get along will be so different because you'd expect them to clash at one point and the clash at the end will be for a different reason other than that they just don't get along because they're different. If I was to use this idea, I feel that using a non-conventional piece of music for a small section of my film trailer will make it memorable, as if I was to use an upbeat song when the detectives are interrogating criminals, it might make the trailer memorable for the viewers, much like the ear-cutting scene in Reservoir Dogs that everybody remembers. This could make my trailer conventional and also non-conventional, as it is very important to test the limits when making a crime film, as there wouldn't be as many conventions as there are for the crime genre had Tarantino or Scorsese pushed the limits and made non-conventional films for the crime genre. These conventions are key for clearly representing my film as a crime film. I want my film to be seen as a crime film, and I don't want my film to be seen as a thriller/crime film. I think that the focus on crime on my film will be enough for it to be solely considered a crime film. These conventions are important, as they are the main conventions for all crime films, and I could purposely not conform to these conventions on some conventions, and over time I'll tweak my final film trailer and not conform to all conventions. This is important for what I'd like to create, as I want my film to be unique, realistic perception of the modern era and introduce my own conventions. If you enjoyed my first plot idea, stay tuned for more of these videos in the coming days. Thank you for watching.